Hi, Steve here. Thank you for joining me on the Panoramic Travels YouTube channel. Okay, we didn't drive our RV to the Motown Museum since we live in a suburb of Detroit, but if your travels take you to or near Detroit, I'd highly recommend spending a few hours at the Motown Museum, also known as Hitsville USA. Berry Gordy borrowed $800 from family members to open his first headquarters and recording studio. As the business grew, Mr. Gordy just bought more nearby houses. Berry's sister, Esther Gordy Edwards, created the Motown Museum by preserving the label's Detroit studio. Esther passed away in 2011. Berry Gordy, as of the posting of this video, is still alive at the age of 95. Berry Gordy has been awarded a Grammy, the National Medal of Arts, and is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee and a Kennedy Center honoree. Thomas was our guide. I would have loved to share some of his presentation, but audio and video recording isn't allowed inside the Motown Museum. It's amazing to think about how many incredibly talented singers and musicians lived in the Detroit area in the 60s and early 70s. Here are a few. There was a special exhibition for one of the original Funk Brothers, Hank Cosby, who played tenor sax. The Funk Brothers were the session musicians that played on each of Motown's 100-plus U.S. R&B #1 singles and 50-plus U.S. pop #1 singles released from 1961 to 1972 when the Motown label moved to Los Angeles. Unfortunately, they never achieved the fame or fortune they deserved. I would highly recommend the 2002 documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It's available on YouTube. Here's an excerpt.
You know, that's probably one of the more recognizable guitar licks of the early Motown days. And when I originally played it 27 years ago, I didn't think much about it, only that it worked. In the small confines of Studio A, myself and the rest of the musicians didn't realize what an impact we'd have on the rest of the world.
They called us the Oreo cookie guitar section because Robert White sat to my right and Eddie Willis sat to my left, and the white boy.
Joseph.
Shortly after Earl Van Dyke died in 1992, I went out to visit Robert in Los Angeles, and we went out to eat. And wouldn't you know it, as we're about to order and the waiter's coming over, all of a sudden you hear the guitar line from My Girl come over the speaker in the restaurant. And Robert got real excited, real animated, and he said, as the waiter walked over, he said, "Hey man, you hear that? That's," and he stopped dead. And then he kind of looked embarrassed, and he looked down at the menu, and he says, "I think I'll have the barbecue chicken." And then, you know, I just ordered my thing, and the guy walked away, and I said, "Robert, you were going to tell him that was you, weren't you?" He said, he kind of looked embarrassed. He said, yeah, but I don't know. He'd look at me, and he'd say, "Look at this tired old fool." He'd never believe it. And that floored me. Because, I mean, here's a guy who played a guitar line that's the equivalent, it's like one of the top 5 all-time guitar hooks. I mean, it's right up there with Satisfaction by the Stones and Paperback Writer or Come As You Are from Nirvana. At that point, I realized, you know, here's a guy that's lived for 30 years, this close to his dream. And yet, instead of being inside the dream looking out, he was on the outside of the dream looking in, never able to touch that dream. I knew at that point, you know, Robert desperately needed some recognition in his lifetime. But he didn't make it across the finish line with the rest of the guys. He just didn't make it.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing and clicking on the notify bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll have more videos up soon.
I was born on the streets of the city. It was a one-room shack with 10 other children beside me.